Alright guys, before we get into the podcast, let's get through the rigmarole first. Remember guys, this podcast posts each and every single Wednesday. The first segment of the show, we go through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. The second segment of the show, we preview game day. And the third and final segment of the show, we go through the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A. So this first segment, this first news story is concerning Laremy Tunsil. Obviously, there have been... I guess people have been disappointed, and fans have too. Obviously, he's been penalized a lot this season. He has not performed up to expectations. But what people have to understand, the man's played two different positions, and that's obviously affected his growth. And that learning curve from year one to year two, he's had to learn two totally different positions. I know I just repeated myself, but it's very hard to do that. It's like you're a professional fisher, and then somebody asks you that you have to be a professional scuba diver the next year. And then, oh yeah, we expect you to be great at doing both, if that makes any sense. So it's very difficult to do. It's not like, oh, Laremy can he's a robot, he's an android, he can just learn any position that quick and be elite at it. I think we expected him to do that because he was such a high-value left tackle, but again, he had to learn two totally different positions. Hopefully he grows from this and continues to grow, but here, this news story is concerning his future and what position he will play. The Dolphins do not have any plans to shift Laremy Tunsil from tackle to guard. Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, writes, Tunsil, the number 13th overall pick in the 2016 draft, has 12 penalties this year, the second most in the NFL. Still, offensive coordinator Clyde Christensen insists that he will remain on the outside. So, I don't think we expected anything less, but just in case anybody was wondering, that's where his position will lie for many years to come. And I think he should stay there. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully he learns from the experience this year and doesn't plague him for the rest of his career like he's going to be that kind of a player. I don't think he will be. I think he's going to have a great year next season. He definitely has the potential to do it. I don't think I think this was just a learning curve year for Laremy Tunsil. Alright, this next news story is some draft notes concerning the Miami Dolphins. Even after trading Jay Ajayi, running back does not seem like a major area of need for the Dolphins entering the offseason. Second-year tailback Kenyon Drake has shined with Ajayi gone and Damian Williams recovering from injury. He played all but 3 snaps, and the teams lost to the Chiefs. The teams lost to the Chiefs in Week 16 and ranks 4th among all running backs with 369 yards after contact. The 23-year-old has averaged 4.5 yards per carry over his last 4 contests and has made a difference in the passing game as well. With his productive late-season performance, he seems primed to enter 2018 as the Dolphins' surefire number 1 back. I don't think that surprises anybody, and I'm happy to hear it. Now, that doesn't mean the Dolphins won't go out and draft a late-round running back. Just because the Saints had Mark Ingram and he had a tremendous season, he went to the Pro Bowl. I think it was his first Pro Bowl that year. They still went out and got Alvin Kamara. So I don't think that necessarily rules out a Dolphins running back in the draft. But basically that report is saying the Dolphins believe in Kenyon Drake. They're confident in Kenyon Drake. And I think that's what all of us Dolphins fans wanted to hear. Alright, wide receiver Jakeem Grant often gets lost in the shuffle behind the likes of Jarvis Landry, Kenny Stills, and Devontae Parker. However, the second-year wideout managed to catch 4 balls for over 100 yards in last Sunday's matchup. He only played in 10.4% of the team's snaps this season, which makes sense because of the Dolphins' deep receiving core. But Landry is set to hit the open market this offseason, so Grant could be auditioning for a bigger role in 2018 should the team's star wideout move on. Okay, so that's an interesting report. I think we actually have some more on this. We're going to keep going. No, we don't. So, just to talk about that for a second. The whole Jakeem Grant thing. Listen to that stat. 10.4% of the team snaps. That is ridiculous. Jakeem Grant is not... I think he's one of those players you mix into the game plan. I don't think he's a guy like, okay, you're going to start in the slot or on the outside for the entire game. And especially since we've seen what the type of player Devontae Parker is. Very fragile guy, obviously not very durable. probably never can start a 16-game season for the rest of his career. I don't think he's able to do that. It's not just because of his body, it's just because of the way he plays football. He's a very physical player. Obviously, he throws his body around constantly, jumping in between three people and, slamming his back on the ground. So I don't think Devontae Parker is ever going to be a 16-game guy. I never thought Julio Jones would be that, and really Julio Jones has never been that. And I'm comparing him the both because they have similar body types. And the thing that the Falcons do with Julio Jones, they limit his snap counts, they mix in some of their other skill position talent to take some of the load off of Julio Jones. And I think that's something that we have to do with Devontae Parker. So I think Jakeem Grant is like the perfect player for that. The Falcons have Justin Hardy and Tyler Gabriel. Jakeem Grant is that guy for us. I think he is that guy that we can mix into the game plan, who can break out for an 80-yard touchdown, who can have a big game like that, 4 catches, 100 and something yards. But he's not a starter I don't think he's somebody who can have like a ridiculous, he can't be a starter on our team. I think he's somebody, again, that you just mix in. I think it's very dangerous to just say, okay, Jarvis, you're gone. We're going to replace you with Jakeem Grant, who hasn't really proved that he can do what he did against the Chiefs on a consistent basis. I do think he needs way more snaps, and that's what I'm saying about mixing him into the game plan and relieving Devontae Parker from time to time, because 10.4% is ridiculous. He needs to play way more than that. He's way too talented to do that. He's very similar to like the Steelers when they had Slash and all of those kind of players. I'm not saying he's a gadget player, but I do think he is a weapon that needs to be utilized more. And I definitely think you can use him in very creative ways. And I think it is a smart idea to utilize him as relief. He's like our sixth man in basketball. Like, he's going to come off the bench. He's going to relieve one of our stars to make him more effective throughout the season. And I think that's what Jakeem Grant is to us. I don't think he's one of our starting five, to use that analogy. All right. This is more draft notes. Grant wasn't the only little used player to see increased snaps in Week 16. Miami saw two new faces that got a lot of action versus the Chiefs as well. Tight end A.J. Derby, whom the team claimed for the Broncos, was targeted 5 times. Although he only managed 1 catch in the contest, cornerback... we'll talk about A.J. here in a second. Also, cornerback Torrey McTyer played in 61 of the Dolphins' 83 snaps before he was taken out of the game due to injury. McTyer was signed by the Dolphins as an undrafted free agent last offseason and could be in line for a further audition in Week 17, should he be healthy enough to play. Miami needs more tight ends and defensive backs for next season, so Derby and McTyer could get another shot to impress the team's in the team's regular season finale this weekend. Okay, so this is important. AJ didn't do a lot. Obviously, he's in a new system. He's got to learn it. New personnel, new quarterback, all that other stuff. I don't expect... Hopefully, in Week 2, he does a lot more. But obviously, I think the game plan was... The tight ends weren't really involved in the game plan against the Chiefs. It was a good game plan. Obviously, we didn't execute it well enough because of the turnovers and just the mental mistakes. But I love the game plan. We're getting off track here. But AJ Derby, I think, is getting a lot more chances against the Bills. Torrey McTyer is the one that really has impressed me. He dropped an interception that he should have picked off. It was a very inaccurate ball from Alex Smith that kind of just got lost in the zone coverage. Usually you see that ball intercepted. Torrey obviously barely missed it. So he should have had an interception. He was around the ball a lot. He made a couple open field tackles. I like Torrey a lot. I think he has a future in the NFL. I think he has a future on this roster. He had a tremendous preseason. I mean, I don't think he had a better preseason than Cordrea did, but you could have made the argument that he was just as good. So Torrey is another player that I love, and I think he has a real future in the NFL. All right, let's move on to the next news story. This next news story, Adam Gase hasn't spoken to quarterback Jay Cutler yet about the 2018 role. Adam Gase said Wednesday that he has spoken to Jay Cutler about him returning to the Dolphins in 2018. Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald notes, Jackson adds the Dolphins remain committed to having Ryan Tannehill return as their starter next season. But he reported last week the Finns would be open to Cutler coming back as the backup. Cutler would start this weekend's regular season finale against the Bills. So, for some reason, the Dolphins want to keep Jay Cutler in their building. For whatever reason, obviously he's a better player than Matt Moore, sometimes I don't even know if that's true, because sometimes he is and sometimes he isn't. He's the most inconsistent quarterback ever. We definitely do not have to have him in the building anymore. He doesn't have to be the backup. There's no reason for this. Obviously, this is probably a relationship thing between Adam Gase and Jay Cutler. Obviously, they're great friends. They get along with each other. But that doesn't... there's no results of that on the field. And a lot of the teams, our struggles this season have been because of the inconsistencies at quarterback. That is the main issue. Why this season has turned out the way it has. Obviously, there have been some other issues on this roster that need to be fixed and need to be looked into with all the penalties and undisciplined play, all that stuff. Even on defense, just, the lack of a quarterback on the defense, all that stuff. There have been other issues, but the biggest one has been the inconsistencies at quarterback. And Jay Cutler is the plague. That's a harsh word to use, but he is the reason for that. So I don't know why we want to keep him in the building. So this next news story is more of the same on the Jay Cutler situation. Jay Cutler on 2018, quote, "I want to play football." The Dolphins seemed to sign veteran quarterback Jay Cutler as more of a placeholder until Ryan Tannehill returned from injury in 2018. However, it looks like Cutler is intent on suiting up once again for a team next season. When asked by reporters on Wednesday about his football future, Cutler simply responded, quote, "I want to play football." Cutler will be entering his age 35 season in 2018, but will be a free agent after signing a one-year contract with Miami in training camp. The veteran single caller's openness to keep playing is rather surprising, given that he was already set to retire as a broadcaster. After a long 11-year career with the Broncos and Bears, his play has been inconsistent for a majority of his time in the NFL, but only appeared in 5 games in 2016 because of a shoulder injury. But only appeared in 5 games. No, that's not right. That's incorrect. 2016, yeah, that's correct. The season has shown more of the same, with Cutler throwing 19 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. He's only completing 62% of his passes and has accumulated a QBR of 43.3. In the 13 games he's played in this season, there are not quality starting quarterback numbers. They are not quality starting quarterback numbers. And I wouldn't expect Cutler to be very sought after on the open market, with how many promising single callers are becoming available this offseason. We'll just have to wait and see whether Cutler follows through on his intentions, but it appears even if he does, it'll likely be with the organization, as the Dolphins already have their presumptive starter, Ryan Tannehill. So, there's a quote in here somewhere where it says Jay Cutler says he does not want to be a backup. That isn't accurate. So he said that. So he doesn't want to be a backup. He's not coming back to the Dolphins. Again, we're going to move on. But again, I'll say it one more time. Why the Dolphins want him in their facility anymore, I have no idea. No idea. And I think it would be a little weird anyway for the players. So obviously there was animosity. I don't know if animosity, but there was definitely questioning. I think, and it's in my personal opinion, this is not fact, but there was definitely some kind of, you know what I mean, when Jay Cutler was signed with the players. Because it was very, Adam Gase, he looked like a hypocrite, Obviously, he treats, the other players differently than he does his quarterback. And that, I think, affected, I don't know, it was a whole weird situation, and you can clearly see that the two have a great relationship, and that was one of the bigger reasons that he stuck around. I don't know, it was just a very weird situation, very weird. It's like two friends got together, and he just got treated differently than the other players, and I think that affected some relationships. I hope it didn't for the long term. And I don't think he lost any respect in the locker room, but it definitely was weird. All I could say is it's one of the weirder situations I've ever seen in NFL history with those two. It's very weird. Latest on Jarvis Landry's negotiations. So this is very interesting. One of the high-profile free agents this offseason will be Dolphins wide receiver Jarvis Landry. While there were rumors that the team could trade him during training camp and prior to the deadline, it appears Miami's trying to keep the number one wide out. Over the last month, the Dolphins have exchanged contract figures with Landry, hoping to make progress on a contract extension. A source tells Jocelyn Anderson of ESPN.com. Anderson adds that while talks have been at a standstill over the past 2 weeks, it's been Landry's reps that have been making the most recent recommendations. That's not great news, I guess. Even though the negotiations appear to be far away from an actual deal at the moment, it should be encouraging to both sides that they are discussions are taking place this close to the end of the regular season. After the Dolphins took Landry in the second round of the 2014 draft, the fourth-year wideout has been steadily climbing the NFL's tiers of wide receivers. More consistent than explosive, Landry has been one of the best wideouts in the league with the football in his hand. He ranks 5th among wideouts in yards after the catch, with 451 in 2017. The 25-year-old has posted 3 straight seasons of at least 90 receptions and has caught a career-high 8 touchdowns this year, even with a less than ideal quarterback situation. His yardage totals were superior in the previous 2 seasons, but much of that can be accounted for by the shaky quarterback play and fellow wide receiver Kenny Stills and Devontae Parker needing to get in on the action. Should the two sides not agree on a contract extension before the start of free agency, the franchise tag is always a possibility. Although the Dolphins are projected to have the 4th fewest amount of cap space in the NFL for 2018, according to some websites' calculations, investing heavily in another pass catcher when the team already has receiving options under contract and other more urgent needs makes it a particularly interesting free agent situation. That article, I mean, obviously, most of that is obviously reporting on the negotiations, but that's not, obviously whoever wrote that doesn't have the greatest knowledge of the team, because obviously, other than Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker has been an utter disappointment. He makes it sound like Devontae Parker had some great season. It would be interesting if Devontae Parker went off and, let's say he went to the Pro Bowl, has over 1,000 yards, 10, 12 touchdowns, then it would have been interesting. Then I don't think the Dolphins would have kept him. But now that Devontae Parker has been an utter trash fire, then yeah, Jarvis Landry is going to be a Dolphin. It would be stupid not to, because everybody acts like we have this deep receiver core. We have a lot of talent on it, and some of it didn't get to prove itself this season. But Devontae has been a disappointment, and we need to figure out a different way to utilize him, or maybe he is just not the player we thought he was going to be, and we need to move on. And I've said that this upcoming season is his last year to prove it. If he doesn't, he's gone. The smart thing to do is keep Jarvis Landry. I wanted to keep Juice, even if Devontae Parker had a great season, because of how important Jarvis is to this offense. The only player on our offense this season that any coordinator had to worry for before Kenyon Drake went off was was Jarvis Landry. He is the player that people try to take away. So he is our best player on offense, bar none. Especially 2017, for the 2017 season. So he needs to be extended. And you can't just replace all of that with Joe Schmo. You just can't, especially not Jakeem Grant. Jakeem Grant does not have the ability that Jarvis Landry has. And I don't even have to give you numbers. You see it. Jarvis Landry is a special player. And special players are not just special in terms of talent. They're hardworking. They're consistent is the most important thing. If you're great at anything and you're consistent at it, then you're one of the best at what you do. And that is a very rare trait that not many NFL players have. But Jarvis Landry has it. He's just consistent. And it feels good to say. And that's that. You can't say that about many Dolphins. So there you go. All right, this next news story. Adam Gase takes some blame for Miami's 2017 debacle. Alright, so let's get into this. With a week left of the regular season and the team's playoff hopes gone, Dolphins head coach Adam Gase has spent the Christmas holiday running through everything he could have done differently this year. Several players said Sunday they felt this team had too much talent to be this bad. No duh. Even with injuries knocking out several key contributors, including Ryan Tannehill, some of them talked about how they get in their own way with penalties and other mistakes. And Gase is internalizing some of that as well. He said, quote, "I think we all feel that way," he said. Again, this is Adam Gase talking. Quote, "That's why the offseason is a horrible experience to go through when you have a situation like this, where you start going back through the year and telling yourself, I should have done this, I should have done that. Maybe I should have called this. again, this is Adam Gase. You have to be extremely hard. Excuse me. You have to be extremely hard on yourself so you make sure you don't make those mistakes again. That's why it's the greatest team sport you can possibly be involved in, because it's not going to be one guy. It's going to be everybody from top to bottom. We all have a hand in this, and at the end of the day, we didn't get it done. This season's underachievement comes on the heels of Gase being a Coach of the Year candidate, which he should have won in 2016. That was a team in need of fixing after the firing of Joe Philbin, and Gase steered Miami out of a 1-4 start to finish 10-6 and make the playoffs for the first time since 2008, which was a great season. I didn't expect that team to sniff the playoffs, let alone be a 10-win team, go on a 7-game win streak like we did, completely turn around the season. And Adam Gase should have won Coach of the Year that season for just revitalizing the franchise and setting it on a path for success. And obviously we didn't follow that up with any kind of success in the second season, which is why I'm so upset. But there's a lot of reasons for that, and I think we'll be way better next season. This year he lost Tannehill in training camp and saw Raekwon McMillan, Ted Larson, Juwan James, and others go on injured reserve as well. The Dolphins were still in decent shape at 4-2 after beating the Jets in October, despite some early humiliations by the Jets and Saints, but fell apart with a 5-game losing streak. Nothing looked right during that stretch. And the only game that was even close was a 27-24 loss to Oakland, which is true. That was the most brutal stretch, man. Brutal stretch. Surprisingly, both on the field and in the standings, Miami was able to catapult itself back into the playoff chase with wins over Denver and New England earlier this month. That surge was short-lived, though, as the Dolphins fell flat at Buffalo 2 weeks ago and imploded at Kansas City on Christmas Eve. It was under 25 degrees for each game. Had they won those 2 games, they'd be 8-7 and would control their own destiny in Sunday's season finale against the Bills. That's what sucks so bad about this year. Is the AFC is so hot garbage this season. A 10-win, you would walk. If you're a 10-win team, you walk into the playoffs easy. And it's so frustrating that we had this. I mean, it's so frustrating. I think this is Adam Gase again. Quote, I think when we go back and revisit this season in the offseason, it's probably going to be a lot of frustration, said Gase, who is now 16-16 as head coach, including the postseason. He said, quote, I feel like we've got a lot of things, we had a lot of things slip through our fingers, and that's why we've got to understand when you're a young player, sometimes you forget how valuable every game is. We do have a lot of young guys that have to learn how to prepare each week. Because you never know when that's going to be the week that changes your season one way or the other. You know, that's a great point, but I felt like there were so many games this season that the team rallied around, obviously, and then won the game. The Falcons was a signature win. That team's probably going to the playoffs. That team's probably, well, they're not going to go to the playoffs. I take that back. I don't think they're making it, but that was a good football team, obviously, that we beat. NFC champions. We somehow won that game. I thought after that game, and especially after the Jets game, and even after the Patriots game, after all the trash we went through, I thought those wins will kickstart the season. I even said if we beat the Patriots on Monday Night Football, we're going to the playoffs. But again, the inconsistencies of this team is ridiculous. And obviously, going to Buffalo and the way Jay Cutler performed was terrible. Kansas City with all the turnovers and penalties. It's just a really, really unfortunate situation. Even thinking about this season just ticks me off because this team was too good to perform the way they did. Obviously, again, injuries, all blah 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 blah, all that other stuff. But such a great opportunity, and it would have meant so much to the fans, so much to Miami, and so much to the culture that Adam Gase is trying to establish, and the respect he would have garnered for bringing the Dolphins in his first 2 seasons to back-to-back playoff appearances. In even winning seasons, that would have been huge. And I stand by that. And I think that would have meant a lot to free agents. And I think that would have meant a lot to coaches around the league. And just it would have definitely established him as one of the best coaches in the NFL. And in my opinion, definitely one of the best coaches in the AFC East. So it's an unfortunate situation. Okay, so this is another quote from Adam Gase. He said, quote, "We have to understand that we're going to play in every kind of environment, weather-wise, hot, cold, rain, snow, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, we've got to figure out a way to play well in it." These last 2 weeks were a valuable lesson for us because we didn't play as well as we needed to. It was a little cold, but we have to play better in those situations. So again, it's just a frustrating situation. And obviously Adam Gase is taking some blame for that, and that's good leaders do that. You have to take the blame for it because you're obviously one of the more important pieces to the puzzle. You have to take some blame for that. So this is the quote I was referring to earlier. Miami Dolphins Jay Cutler backup role not in any of his future plans. Miami Dolphins quarterback Jay Cutler indicated Wednesday that he is unlikely to continue his NFL career next season if he is not the starter. He said, quote, "Yes, I think so," Cutler said. "I wouldn't have wanted to move again or go somewhere else just to back up." So there you go. So again, that's all destroyed. That's the exact quote that I was referring to earlier. Got that for you guys. That's just not going to work. And I think it would have been weird. So thank God that's not. I don't know why the Dolphins wanted him to keep him around. I don't know. This next news story: Dolphins guard Isaac Asiata sits all year and vows. Asiata said, "Quote: I'm not doing this again." Few rookies would have the temperament to accept being benched all season with a positive attitude, but Dolphins guard Isaac Asiata is an unusual rookie. He's about to turn 25 and he's uncommonly mature. Asiata came in as a fifth-round pick with an opportunity to fight his way into the offensive line rotation at guard, but it was clearly early the team didn't think he was ready to play. Offensive coordinator Clyde Christensen even went as far enough to call it a redshirt year. Quote, this is from Clyde, "One of the most important things I've learned," oh no, this is from Asiata, excuse me, this is a quote from Asiata. "One of the most important things I've learned, and something my mom taught me in life, is to be humble," Asiata said. "I don't have all of the answers, and I don't act like I do. It was nice for me to get adjusted. Now the adjustment period is over. I'm not doing this again." There's a chance Asiata, 6'3", 341 pounds, could make his pro debut Sunday against the Bills as Coach Adam Gase considers letting some of his little-used young players get some extended run in a game that has no stakes for Miami. On the offensive line, Ted Larson is one of the best candidates to rest. He's been dealing with an injury most of the season, and as a veteran doesn't need reps in a game that doesn't mean anything. Plus, he's trash anyway, so what the heck do we care? For Asiata, though, it's been a great chance to play against Buffalo, first-string defensive line. He said he hasn't been told whether he's playing this week. If he does get the opportunity, he believes he's much more prepared than he would have been at the start of the season. Asiata said, quote, it's been nice because I've been able to work. I know I had to make some adjustments when I got here. It's a different scheme, and it's a whole new speed. I was able to learn the playbook, have things slow down, and go against one of the best D-linemen in the NFL. I appreciate Sue, Jordan Phillips, and those guys for going at me and being able to learn from them. It's been a fun year. While he knew it would be a significant transition from Utah to the NFL, he doesn't expect to sit out his entire rookie. He didn't expect to sit out his entire rookie year. That was a blow to his confidence. Asiata said, quote, it was a little bit of a blow, but you got to just roll with the punches. I love this team because it wouldn't be easy to get down on yourself if nobody really cares. But the guys on this team supported me. Even though I wasn't playing, they didn't treat me any different. They know I'm working on things and trying to get better. It became clear to him after the few regular season games that the Dolphins were going to keep him on the bench this year. Anthony Steen, Jesse Davis, and Larson, and Jermon Bushrod had started all the games at guard this year. It's unclear how many of the guys will be back in 2018. Steen will be a restricted free agent, and Bushrod could be ready to retire at 33. Furthermore, it's possible the Dolphins will shift Davis permanently to right tackle. If Asiata wants to be in the mix and some of those snaps next year, the coaches have told him he must get faster overall and quicker with his footwork. He needs to, quote, get my feet out of the cement. To use his words, whether he plays in the Buffalo game or not, he has about 8 months to get his level of play up. Miami expects that if he wants to avoid another season like this. So yeah, I mean that's very interesting. I mean that at least shines some light on why he hasn't played. And apparently it's due to he's have faster footwork. He's not fast enough, according to Clyde. So that is interesting. So that at least we know why he hasn't started, and it's not been because of some stupid veteran reason or promises, any of that other trash that goes on in the NFL that doesn't make any sense. It's been because he's just not at the level where he needs to be. And at least the Dolphins organization shines some light on that, because all of us fans are wondering what the heck, what's going on. And thank God that we've gotten some clarity to the situation. All right, this next news story. Adam Gase says what Devontae Parker needs to do to become a very good player. Devontae Parker has 152 receiving yards over the last 2 weeks, and he's providing a bit of optimism from the Miami Dolphins. Quote, I think last week there were a couple of times where it was good to see him go up and get one, Miami's Adam Gase said. Adam Gase said, quote, you're right, the week before the same thing, there were a couple of situations where we went to him and he made a play. It might be something as little as catching a slant, and things were not going well, and he made a play to kind of at least get the ball rolling. Parker missed 3 games with an ankle injury earlier this season. He also went through a 7-week stretch where he averaged only 3 catches per game and seemed to lose confidence. As it almost always the case with Parker, not feeling healthy was a factor in his struggles. Quote, Adam Gase, this is from Adam Gase, he has shown us that you can tell he's feeling better. He's doing a lot of the things we've asked him to do all season. We just need to get to a point where we have that consistency game in and game out. And when we get to that point, he should be a very good player. So there you go. Parker is just an enigma wrapped in a riddle, and we can't figure it out. So whenever he wants to live up to his potential would be great. And again, he has it, man. It doesn't make any sense to me. Obviously, you have to have a mental strength about you. Obviously, him getting over the hurdle of him constantly being injured and constantly feeling pain has been a struggle. And hopefully, eventually, and again, hopefully Jakeem Grant can be that sixth man for us, and that helps his career, Devontae Parker. And again, us as an organization and as a front office have to understand, okay, this is what he struggles with. What can we do to maximize that not happening? What can we do to maximize his talent? What can we do to fix it? And I think that's a great idea. It's just to kind of use him sparingly as much as possible, and mixing in some other players in that role to help him out. And I think that's a great idea, and I think that will help his career overall. All right, this next news story is a good player every team could add to improve their roster, I guess. This comes from, I think, Bleacher Report, yeah. So I thought this would be an interesting little nugget here to go through. LSU defensive end Arden Key, excuse me. The Miami Dolphins don't have the cabbage to be movers and shakers in free agency around $15 million, thanks to Ndamukong Suh. The team has already shown it's averse to taking risk on draft day by selecting players with character concerns. See Laramie Tunsil. One time we did that. Are you kidding me? We've been reluctant to draft people with character concerns because we crap and play in Miami. Adam Gase even said that's something that they are very wary of in the draft, is because our team is located in the party capital of the world. We have to be very cautious of who we select, especially if they have character concerns, because it's going to be a whole lot harder to control somebody like that in Miami. Think of all the players we've passed on with character issues that have been great players in the NFL. The biggest one is Tyrann Mathieu, who I would have loved to have had, and we had a lot of chances to get, that slipped through the cracks, and could be probably the best safety duo right now in the NFL with Tyrann and Rashad. But no, we didn't do it because of his character concerns. So that's utter trash. All right, add to all of those defensive ends that aren't getting any younger, and the door is open for the Dolphins to potentially add another problem child from the SEC. LSU's Adrian Key, whatever you say, is a 6'6", 265-pound terrier whose athleticism and burst off the edge would probably test off the charts at the combine. However, Key left the LSU program last spring only to return significantly heavier, as Matt Miller reported. Some speculated Key's unexplained absence was for a stint in rehab. He also battled shoulder and knee injuries this season. Key will have plenty of answers for when interviews with potential teams roll around, and any concerns of his availability could knock Key out of the top 10. In any case, the Dolphins could be set to hit the bargain bin jackpot for a second time in 3 seasons. Well, there's obviously some other than his character. Obviously the injuries. I mean, you don't know what the heck this kid's going to be. I mean, I don't want another. We do not need a Jamarcus Russell situation where he's just not dedicated to his craft and he's just getting fat and all this other stuff. And obviously he has, addiction issues. That's a whole lot worse than Laramie Tunsil, who 3 years ago, a 3-year-old video was released of him with a crap and weed mask on. And God knows all college players in any college profession, in any college athletic program, smoke weed. So that was not even close to what Key is going through. So to compare those two is ridiculous. So there you go. The final news story of the day, Miami Dolphins offensive tackle Zach Stirrup could be on brink of first NFL start. There are plenty of good reasons for Dolphins offensive tackle Zach Stirrup to say he's loving Miami. For the starters, he might start in Sunday's finale against the Buffalo Bills. Stirrup said he saw time with the first team in Thursday's practice. Regular left tackle Laramie Tunsil was out with an ankle injury, and given that the team has no playoff implications for the Dolphins, is a good opportunity to test younger players. Stirrup, the tallest Dolphin at 6'9", has played 5 games in his NFL career, all with Miami, but Sunday would be his first NFL start. Stirrup probably never thought he'd say such a thing, having grown up in Nebraska and having attended the University of Nebraska. But then again, he probably never expected to have a Christmas like this one. He said, quote, "This is the Christmas where I actually went to the beach a little bit," Stirrup said. "It was packed. You can't do that in Nebraska." Well, it has been... Well, what a weird thing to say right in the middle of that. The article there. While it might be a natural to text... Okay, who cares about his social life? Yeah, so that's interesting. Zach Stirrup might start. Probably won't. I doubt he will, to be honest with you. I hope Laramie starts, to be honest. Laramie is a young player, and he needs to continue to work on his craft. So yeah, that's the news for this week. I think that's the longest news segment we've ever done on this podcast. 37 minutes long. There's just a lot to go through, man. A lot to go through, and just a lot of tragic. This year has been such a throwaway, forgettable season. It's not even funny. I remember when we first got Sue, and obviously Olivier Vernon was coming off that great season, and Cam Wake was obviously dead in his prime, and I thought, dude, this team's gonna this defense is gonna be great and all this other stuff. And we went 6-10. The next was, I think, Sue's first year or something like that. And that was a hard one to take because I really thought Sue would change it because Sue was coming off his best year, and he was coming off this first team All Pro season. So I thought we were getting like a Reggie White, and obviously Sue has been that, but it obviously wasn't enough to overcome the utter trash that was the organization at the time. So that was a tough one, but this one was even tougher than that because of the season we had a year before. And even people bring up the 2008 season and, oh, well, the Dolphins did this in 08 and 09. That's totally different. We had a lot of veteran players in the secondary on defense with Joey Porter. All of our key contributors to that team were old, and just old farts that just, obviously their play deteriorated over time and they weren't the same player the next season. Obviously Chad Pennington, all that other stuff. So that was a totally different scenario. It was a young Dolphins nucleus that was growing, and that had a lot of potential in the future. So that is why it was different. And that is why it sucks so bad. Alright, moving on to the Buffalo Bills game and what we need to do to win it. It comes down to a very... I will give Bleacher Report. Here's probably the most valid reason to draft Arden or Key or whatever, however you say his name. Terrible with names. Is because of his athleticism. And this Dolphins defense, on the edges, needs that. They do need it. I think we do definitely need another younger defensive end. And I do not think we should get one in free agency. I think we need to draft one. And I think we need somebody either in the later rounds, we don't have to draft one in the first 3, but just as a gadget player to help stop some of these athletic quarterbacks that we've struggled with over the last 2 seasons when you talk about what Cam Newton did to us. Even Ryan Fitzpatrick, for God's sakes. Some of these players, just even the Alex Smith, Tyrod Taylor, with these option offenses that have just utterly decimated this defense. That needs to be changed, and we need to add more athleticism up front. And we need to move on from some of these more traditional 4-3 DNs. I'm not saying we need to switch to a 3-4. I'm just saying add some of these tweener gadget guys to help with that. And I think that's going to help our season in general, for sure. And definitely going to help some of our situational defense. So I would not be opposed to a move like that because it helps this defense in a place where they desperately need it. And we do need a more athletic defensive end. So it plays directly into the Buffalo Bills game plan. It's just stopping Tyrod Taylor. And again, it's very hard to do, but not allowing him to extend drives is going to be a huge, huge thing in this game. And I said this last game, and it's something we didn't do because they took their first drive down the field and scored a touchdown, and then we just could never get out in front of them. But if we get out in front of them in this game, I think we'll win it. And even if we do get out in front of them early, it's going to be a very close game down to the fourth quarter. But I definitely think we'll win the game because any team that gets down early against us is going to lose. I truly do believe that. Our team is going to be very hard to pass 50 times a game on because of our front and because we have some players in the secondary that can make plays. So I don't know how many times we've talked about it this season, but that is something that we need to do on a more consistent basis. And that needs to be a point of emphasis going into the 2018 season and really trying to figure out why this offense continues to struggle early on in games. And that's something that needs to be fixed. But if we do that in this game, this should be a pretty easy win. Not a pretty easy win. It's going to be a tough battle, I think. But I think our chances of winning the game go up just astronomically because of that. So that is a huge key to the game, for sure. So moving on to that's really all I have to say, because I think that is the only thing standing from us. And obviously, don't even get me started on Cutler needs to have a good game. And I think something that I didn't bring up last time is Leslie Frazier coached against Cutler for many years in the NFC North. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe Leslie knows something that all of us don't. Well, we do know, but I don't know if that had something to do with it. Hopefully that does not continue, and it's not a bad matchup for us because of that. I hope that's not the case. I think Adam Gase is smart enough to understand what the Bills are trying to do to him, and I think that gives us an edge as well, especially since he saw what they did to us last time. And even then, though, I thought we had a great game plan. But this time around, I think he's going to be even more prepared, and I think Cutler, hopefully, if he has any kind of oomph in his personality, is going to take last time's loss personally. And I think another reason, and it's so stupid to even say this because he played in the NFC North for so many years, but the cold looked like it affected him. That's the only reason I could see the accuracy issues, him dropping the ball constantly, all that other stuff. Maybe that is the reason, and now that he's in Miami, hopefully that helps him throw the ball. It's less windy, all that other stuff. So, but he has the arm talent. That excuse makes no sense, and I definitely don't think that was the reason. I just think Jay Cutler's Jay Cutler, but that plays a role as well. Hopefully we're going to be I think we're going to win this game, and I hope we do, or obviously I hope we do, but I definitely think we're going to win this game. I'm very confident in this for a lot of different reasons, and one is because we just played them, and I think I think the weather hopefully is going to help Cutler a lot with his accuracy and all that other stuff, but I think Adam Gase is a very good offensive coordinator, and I think he's going to see what we did right in the Bills game and just slam it down their throat, because we were able to run the football early and often. I think he's going to call less runs to the outside because I think we've struggled with that at times. I think we're going to just attack the middle of that defensive line because there's less beef there. So I think some of those things are going to play a huge role in this game. All right, so let's move on to the next segment, which is the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A, where we answer fans' questions. So let's get into this. As we wait to get the questions in, obviously last week sucked pretty bad. We're not going to get all the questions. Dude, I'm sorry that the news took so long this week, but there was a lot to get through. Gamerific says this is a prediction for the draft. He says we're going to draft a guard, a linebacker, a quarterback, a strong safety, another guard, a tight end, and a defensive end. Give me feedback on this if you don't understand it. If you don't understand the positions, is where the rounds are picked. For 100,000 subs, gets face cam maybe. Okay, that last half of it obviously isn't a Dolphins question, but the guard, the guard, linebacker, quarterback, strong safety, guard, tight end, defensive end. He thinks that is the direction the draft goes in. You know what? Two guards. I don't think that's happening. I don't think the Dolphins draft two guards. They hate guards for some reason. Adam Gase talked about it. He says he can find a guard, and he's kind of right. I mean, he did find Jesse Davis. Linebacker, I could see linebacker for sure. I think that's definitely going to be a priority because for a lot of different reasons. Quarterback is a stretch. Tight end is a definite possibility. So yeah, I agree with that somewhat. Thomas says, this question comes from Thomas. He says, Adam Gase had a fight with Juice. Can that affect the big contract? Also, what are your thoughts on Sue, Wake, and Juice on not making the Pro Bowl? The whole fight with Adam Gase and Jarvis is normal. They're both hotheads, and this has actually happened before. This has happened more than once. This one was a little bit more obvious, but there have been other altercations. They're just mad that they're losing. If we were winning, there would be no issues. He's just mad at the situation. They're both mad and frustrated of the down and distance that we had. The call was safe, to say the least. And we're way too predictable in those situations. Jarvis was mad that we didn't at least try to get a chunk of yards to at least make the field goal easier or even attempt one. But the only reason they were yelling at each other isn't because they don't like each other. It's just because they're just frustrated of how the game was going. And my thoughts on I don't care any of them really, other than Jarvis really. Wake Sue, I don't care that they didn't make the Pro Bowl. I don't care. I honestly don't care about the Pro Bowl. Does it bother me? No, I don't. My thoughts on that is I don't care. It's such a stupid thing anyway. To be honest with you, I don't think any of them deserve to go because of the season that we've had. I'm so mad at the Dolphins right now that I don't care. I just don't care. Thomas says, can you please name every player on Miami that they should resign, trade for, and trade away in free agency and draft? So you wanted me to say who they should resign. They should resign Jarvis. They need to try to get Juwan back. We see how important an offensive line that is talented and consistent can be to an NFL season. That is something that is very, very critical to a season. So I think Juwan needs to be re-signed. It's going to be very hard because obviously there are going to have to be some cuts. I'll say this. I think Juwan and Jarvis need to be re-signed. I think here's who needs to be cut: Kiko Alonso, Andre Branch. I know Andre's a good player, but I think we need to move on, and I think we need to go out and get another defensive end in the draft. Third, and I don't think he's going to be that hard. And you know what? Listen, if Charles fails to the level of whatever, then fine. I'm okay with that. But obviously that allows us to, free up some cap space and go get some other people if we were to do that. So I'm okay if Charles Harris, and if he does, then okay, now we know we have to move on for Charles as well. But Cam can start on the outside, draft a young player to play behind Cam and take some snaps off of him, start Charles for an entire year, see what he does. I'm okay with that. So those two need to go for sure. I would have to think about everybody else. We're kind of running out of time, so I got to hurry up. And we kind of talked, we'll do the draft stuff before, but yeah, that's what I would do. Ryan Carroll says, do we re-sign Landry? Do we get rid of Parker or Stills? Jakeem Grant's playing a bigger role. Does Jakeem Grant play a bigger role next year? I'm worried with all these big contracts such as Tannehill, Sue. Tannehill's isn't big at all, especially for a quarterback. Sue Jones, we might not be able to lock up Landry unless we get rid of. So you're forgetting about some other guys on this roster that have big contracts that they don't deserve. Kiko and Andre have some pretty substantial contracts. If you guys remember, we weren't willing to pay Olivier Vernon the money that he got from the Giants, but we paid Andre Branch more than we would have than the Giants paid for Olivier Vernon. That's insane. So there are players on this roster that are easier to get rid of than some of those other players that we can. Devontae, definitely not. He's under a rookie contract. That doesn't take anything off the books. Kenny, no. I think he's still an important part of this offense, and he will continue to be that. And I think he performed at a high level considering what he was dealing with. So that is what I have to say about that. The Gamer12345 says Kiko needs to be gone. Also, Timmons actually signed a 2-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, Kiko needs to be gone as well. Dave Thompson says second highest paid defensive line in the NFL. Very low production level with sacks this year. Obviously, Sue commands a lot of double teams, and Cameron Wake is getting older. Do you think it's possible Andre Branch is cut in the offseason? I think he should be cut, to be honest with you. Let's see here. This question comes from Reggie or Reggie or whatever your name is. It says, can you see us parting ways with Stills or Parker for money reasons? See, Parker he's in a rookie. He's not worth that much. I think we're paying. I don't even think I can't remember how big his rookie deal is, but it's nothing. It's dirt. Kenny's is big, obviously, but Kenny again. I think the two you want to focus on is Kiko and Andre. Since Grant has shown so much promise, they would still he had one great game. He has a lot of potential, but I don't know if that's something you want to bank on for an entire season. Landry or Parker are still with Grant. Also have Carew or could draft a wide receiver in the 3rd round after we trade Parker and move up in the draft. Just saying that we have options at wide receiver and need to spread the money elsewhere as well. Again, Devontae, even if we cut him, it wouldn't be like we would still be in the same situation. So it doesn't really remove that much or give us that much cap room. Ray Gonzalez says, should Jakeem Grant be brought into our top 3 wide receiver trio and possibly take Devontae Parker's place in this offense? I see him with the same skill set as Tyreek Hill. I think Devontae Parker, since he's so dirt cheap right now and he has one more year in his rookie contract, that we need to see what he does next season. If he does nothing, it doesn't hurt us. It doesn't hurt our cap space. It doesn't hurt our ability to go get more people. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just it gives us clarity. So I think Devontae needs to stick around. I think he is going to stick around. And I think Jakeem, like I said, is going to be utilized more like a 6th man more than anything. This next question comes from Jacob B. He says, the team could cut Sue and move on from Wake. You want a winner or a bunch of names. Wake can't tackle, and Sue is not worth $23 million a year. Look at the San Francisco 49ers with their quarterback now. You need an elite quarterback, a strong offensive line, and a tight end with decent wide receivers to win. Putting tons of money into your defense is stupid. $23 million a year, I think, is more money than Tom Brady gets paid. You might be right about that, but defense wins championships, and don't forget it. I stand by that. I think you need a consistent defense to do anything, even if you do get into the playoffs. If you have this finesse offense that carries your team, you're not going to go very far. Look at the Saints. They scored almost 40 points a game and went 7-9, I don't know how many years in a row, because they didn't have a defense. Defense wins games. And I think defense wins championships, obviously, but I think if you want to have a consistent perennial winner, you have to have a defense. John says, do you think the Miami Dolphins should switch to a 3-4 defense? I know that it would have to change a bunch of players, but I think it wouldn't really have to change that much, to be honest with you. It really wouldn't have to change that much, but I don't think the Dolphins should, and I don't know. I don't think Matt Burke he's more of a 4-3 guy. All right. This question comes from Thomas. He said, what is your most disappointed player on Miami and the most shocked player in terms of improvement? The most disappointing player on the Dolphins. Devontae Parker, for sure. I'm very disappointed in his season, especially since all this hype around him going into the season and nothing. It just spurted. Nothing happened. It was just like last year. Nothing. Even he had a worse year than last year. He actually took a step back, but it was more of the same. He didn't improve at all. He's the same player he has been since he was a rookie. That has been the most disappointing thing. The player I'm surprised about is definitely Jesse Davis. Cordrea to a certain extent, for sure. But yeah, Stephon Anthony, didn't see that coming. But definitely Jesse Davis, because he's played very well. This question comes from David. He says, if Vance Joseph gets fired at the end of the season, should Miami bring him back as DC, and could that happen? Yeah, I think that should happen, to be honest with you. Same scheme, same everything else. Vance commanded a lot of respect into the locker room, and I think it's very similar to what Sean McVay does with Wade Phillips. He has a veteran defensive coordinator that he can trust with his defense and not have to worry about it. And I think it's the same thing with Vance. I think that gives you some more stability and comfortability and familiarity with that. Not that he doesn't have that with Matt Burke, but I think Vance commanded a lot of respect and he had a lot of admiration in that locker room that we lost when we let him go. So I think if we bring him back, if that's a possibility, I think that would work out. This question comes from Axel. He says, why is our D-line trash and we pay them like superstars? I mean, how in the world do you miss two tackles on the quarterback? I don't know. It's just, you know what it is? It's just how, it's, you know, the saying, when it rains, it pours. Again, I think this D-line needs to be more athletic, for sure. And I think that's something we miss, for sure. So that is another reason. This question comes from Ryan. It says, excuse me, that's not a question. Moving on from that. This question comes from Ray. He says, Ray Gonzalez. He says, how do you see Devontae Parker's future in Miami? I think this next year, the 2015 season, or excuse me, the 2018 season is his last season to prove that he is a true number one, or not even a number one receiver, but an asset to the team. And if he doesn't prove that, then he's gone and he's gonna walk. But and again, I think the Dolphins need to understand what he is and how to utilize him, and I think that's another thing that needs to be understood in this organization, as opposed to just keep trying the same thing over and over again. Because obviously, banging your head against the wall. How about you just move around the wall? Like it's gonna keep happening if you don't change something. So I think the Dolphins need to work on some type of a plan. If not, go out and draft somebody younger to split reps with him, or just utilize Jakeem Grant in that way. And I think that would be the best way to utilize his talents. So that is going to be it, guys. I am Skyx1383. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and I'll see you guys in the next one.